Welcome to Gospel Tangents, the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. In our final conversation with Robert Messick, he's the host of Book of Mormon Editions, which is a great YouTube channel, by the way. We're going to be talking about Sidney Rigdon and some of the other third-party breakaways that even from the Salt Lake Church as well. So you won't want to miss this conversation. We'll also talk about the important census that he's putting together, trying to track down every first edition of the Book of Mormon and find out how many there are. Robert's the pioneer on that. So you won't want to miss this conversation. Check it out.
Well, we did talk about succession crisis, but there was another major factor in the succession crisis, and that was Sidney Rigdon was not happy with Brigham Young.
That's right.
And so he left and went to Pennsylvania.
That's right.
And had some congregations there. It petered out, and there was a gentleman by the name of William Bickerton that kind of gathered the flocks together.
I thought I was the only succession crisis nerd. I'm glad to hear you know this too.
So we credit William Bickerton as the Church of Jesus Christ in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And so we call them the Bickertonites, but I'll be respectful by saying, the Church of Jesus Christ in Pennsylvania.
Well, when President Nelson changed, he didn't want to use LDS.org anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's churchofjesuschrist.org.
Yep.
But their website is thechurchofjesuschrist.org.
That's right.
And they got a lot of traffic after that.
They did get a lot of traffic. And so they're actually predominant in the United States and throughout the world, and their congregations actually are still around.
Yeah. I've been in Florida.
Yeah.
They had a baptism here in Salt Lake, and they've had church here a couple of times, but that guy moved. So I don't know if they're going to have any more.
There's a congregation.
Josh Gailey, let me know if you're coming.
Nice guy. I really like
Josh
him.
is awesome.
Yeah. A congregation in Arizona that I've been to. Nice folks. And
Alice Cooper was there.
So living in Arizona and being one of the only Mormons in my hometown or so, I got kind of some flack as an 8, 9-year-old because Alice Cooper was pretty big when I was 8 or 9 or so. And they said, oh, yeah, Alice Cooper was a Mormon, and now he's Alice Cooper. And I was like, no, he's not. I don't know. He's not.
I thought the same thing.
And so I got teased as Alice Cooper being Mormon. And it was years later, and Dr. Daniel Stone did quite a few good interviews with you on that said that Alice Cooper came from the Church of Jesus Christ from Pennsylvania.
The Bickertonites.
The Bickertonites.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he kind of was a Mormon.
He was part of the restoration.
They don't like to be called Mormons.
No. Part of the restoration. How about that?
Yeah.
So they have a red volume, missionary edition of the Book of Mormon. It's wonderful. I went to the congregation, hat in my hand, stayed for a meeting, and said, "Can I have a Book of Mormon? I'm a Utah member." And it's like, "Why are you here?" "Well, welcome. We're happy to have you." And I said, "Could I have a Book of Mormon?" And they said, "Yeah, sure. Here's a Book of Mormon." So you get them from the congregations or church headquarters directly.
Josh gave me one. It was very kind.
So wonderful guy, wonderful people. And so they have a copy of the Book of Mormon. Versing and format is Salt Lake text.
Okay.
And so they have Salt Lake versing and chapter breaks in their Book of Mormon. The history behind it is in their introduction, they said some interesting things. They said that we gathered because we didn't have an 1830 book. Well, because we don't have the printer's manuscript, we had to gather multiple copies. We did have an 1830. We took a LDS 1920 volume. We took a RLDS and all of it and kind of combined all of the text and created our own. And about 1934 was one of their first printings. And so they have their copy of the Book of Mormon that was sourced from multiple other volumes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But they use Salt Lake versing.
But they use Salt Lake versing, yeah.
And is that a red letter edition? Because they like red letter edition.
The missionary volume is black and white, but they also have a leather bound for their congregation or their members. And
that's what Josh gave me.
That one has a red letter volume on it.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah. So with Salt Lake, probably one of the interesting studies is all of the breakoffs from even Salt Lake, even since, the saints and the pioneers moved westward. There's been a lot of breakoffs.
Well, we got to talk about David Hawking too.
Yeah.
And let's see. Well, I think I just saw you got Denver Snuffer over there.
Yeah. So one of the modern ones is the group that's either led by the teachings of Denver Snuffer. And so their group is loosely organized in individual congregations, but they have a scriptures committee. And so one of them was a New Covenant edition. It was kind of a red volume, and it's a print on demand. What's interesting is the group did really well. Rather than warehousing, they actually did a contract with like Amazon or printing companies, Lulu's, and some of the printing companies. And it's a print on demand, and you can get it relatively quickly through like Amazon print on demand.
Right.
And so their website has that. And recently, in the last couple of years, they did a volume that was specifically catered to people who have Hebraic influence. And so it was kind of like a call to the Jews from the Gentiles to do it. Rather than calling it the Book of Mormon, they call it the Stick of Joseph in the Hands of Ephraim.
Okay.
I.e., all of the story about, we come from Joseph, but we're the tribe of Ephraim. So.
Right. So is that a Hebrew one or is that an English one?
It is English, but they have all of the proper words in Hebraic, like it's Moshiach and Hediman and like a... And so, all like Jerusalem and all of the Hebraic words and some kind of alternative vocabulary in it. It's true to the text of the Book of Mormon, but once again,
so they'll refer to Jesus as Yeshua, probably.
Yeah, Yeshua. Do they even have the 4-character tetragrammaton? Yeah.
For like proper names.
Yeah. And so Stick of Joseph in the Hand of Ephraim.
Okay, that one looks big.
Yeah.
Because I have one of their Book of Mormon, but I'm trying to remember. It wasn't that one for sure.
There's a red volume that's red cover. Yeah.
Okay.
But real recently, within the last 6 months or so, Denver specifically and the Scriptures Committee came out and said, hey, we recognize that the text of the Book of Mormon is in Old English, and we want the Book of Mormon to have a message to the current modern audience, just as well as in 1830, the audience was an 1830 audience. So they wanted to update the text of the Book of Mormon to modern language.
That's heresy.
Heresy, I guess so. So they issued a volume called Covenant of Christ.
Oh.
And so it's the copy of the Book of Mormon. It's the text of the Book of Mormon.
So they use you instead of ye.
Ye. No, behold.
Or thee.
They did take the and it came to pass verses out as well.
They took them out.
Yeah.
Heresy.
So all of the ETH and the old mattereth not. And
it mattereth not. Yeah. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. And so they actually did.
That might be interesting to read.
Yeah, they did an overhaul of all of the vocabulary into modern vocabulary. So that's the group that's influenced through Denver Snuffer.
Okay.
And the last one we got is...
You don't have a David Hawking one, though.
Remind me, David Hawking.
So David Hawking is, he lives in North Carolina, and his is what I would say the Heartland edition of the Book of Mormon. It's really awesome because it's kind of a study Book of Mormon, and then he puts kind of a Heartland spin on maps and things like that. He actually, because he lives in North Carolina, he went to Duke University and he presented it to them, and they were like, "Oh, thank you."
Thanks.
Like it's gold embossed. He puts not only Jesus's words in red letters, but he'll put like angels in blue and maybe God. I can't remember, but it's really cool. It's really big. It's full color. Yeah, it's really cool.
That one's considered a third-party Salt Lake volume, Salt Lake edition.
Yeah, it's based on the 1920.
1920.
Because he did it on the 1981, and he showed it to them, and they're like, "You can't do this because number one, you got red letters." Which that was the first time I found out about red letters. I thought that was the weirdest story ever. But number two, the copyright, and so he had to go back to the 1920 because it was out of copyright. So
he partnered with Rod Meldrum,
right?
And that group. And so it was a combination of influencing and introducing the Heartland model in terms of pictures and annotations of the Heartland model.
Right.
And then David Hawking did some great job in terms of annotation. So it's called the Annotated Book of Mormon.
Right.
I didn't bring it because it was
I've got one
So,
at home. I'll show a picture.
Yay. I love it. It was actually one of my top 10
Yeah,
volumes.
it's really cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Because of the annotations and the supplemental material, a lot of supplemental material.
Well, and Grant Hardy has a new one out now.
Called The Annotated Book of Mormon. And I don't know how they got away. I don't know how they did it. Grant Hardy can do what he wants, but Grant Hardy published the Annotated Book of Mormon, and he published it out of a university press.
Yeah.
And same thing, it's the text of the Book of Mormon, but there's annotations and explanations and supplemental material that's laced in to the text of the Book of Mormon.
He's geography neutral.
Yeah. Unlike the Annotated Book of Mormon from Rod Meldrum, which is Heartland model.
Yeah. And then there's also the Brant Gardner version, which looks a lot like, at least I don't have one, but it looked to me a lot like David Hawking's version. The coolest thing about that is he does it in translation order. So he starts it with Messiah, goes through the end to Moroni, and then includes Words of Mormon there, and then 1st, 2nd Nephi, Jacob, 9, I think.
It's the Words of Mormon.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool. I've only seen the digital copy, but Culford Books, if you wanted to send me one, I would appreciate one.
And that was
books get expensive.
That was influenced by the Salt Lake text as well.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, because he went through the printer's manuscript and he actually added some interesting footnotes too. My favorite one, I thought this was the coolest footnote. Joseph had a New England accent, and so when he said zenith, it sounded like zenith.
Okay.
And so, was it Oliver Cowdery or whoever the scribe was, wrote zenith instead of, usually we say zenith now, Zeniff, but he spelled it Zenith, which I thought was hilarious, just because it was a mispronunciation. Yeah. Well, but those are cool things to add.
So a different volume, a third-party volume, is Royal Skousen's earliest text.
Oh, yeah.
So similar situation. He actually goes through the printer's
He got that from Royal.
The printer's manuscript, the original manuscript in the 1830 Book of Mormon, and kind of cross-compared. And there's a lot of similar, like LAND was transcribed into LAMB, like the Gospel of the Lamb versus Gospel on the Land and things like that.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, it's the translation and conversion of manuscripts into text on 1830 was super cumbersome and super human error prone. So, it wouldn't, it's a no-brainer that Zenith versus Zenith.
Yeah.
There's one, have you heard of Joseph Ferriman?
David Ferriman.
Joseph
David
Smith,
Ferriman.
David Ferriman.
I know David. He's been on the podcast.
Yeah, so in 2024, he actually printed his volume. And so it's
I didn't know he
Church
had
of
one.
Jesus Christ in Christian Fellowship.
Yeah.
And he did a universal Book of Mormon.
Oh, wow. I did not know this.
His purpose...
I think he's going to send me one.
Hopefully. So go send...
Yeah, come on, David.
Go send Rick a copy of this. Yeah, I talked with him about it, and his kind of purpose was he wanted to unite all of the denominations into like the universal church, if you will. And so his volume of the Book of Mormon has both Salt Lake and RLDS versing in it. So one's paragraph parentheses, the other one's, the versing. And so it goes to the text of the Book of Mormon, but then you have like multiple sources of versing, if you will.
Wow.
And so this is the Universal Book of Mormon. So I can't say that
that's kind of a cool idea.
It's not Salt Lake, not RLDS. It's
Christian Fellowship.
Yeah, so Christian Fellowship. So those are the denominations, but there's actually a lot of third parties, and I've been amazed at the third party editions of the Book of Mormon.
Yeah.
Sometimes, a lot of times, because the Book of Mormon is in domain, there are some book publishers that say, well, we're going to print a classics series. So all of the Jules Verne and the Victor Hugo's and whatever, and then they incorporate a Book of Mormon because it's in public domain. So there's a lot of print on demands for that. The 1980s, there was a congressman from California, and he was in the state Congress in California, and he turned lobbyist to Washington, D.C. And he says, if the United States Congress could actually just read the Book of Mormon, they'd fix a lot of their problems. And so they actually printed an essential Book of Mormon.
Okay.
Specifically from a lobby group that was in Washington, D.C. And it was for the purpose of maybe getting into the hands of government leaders to read it. It's an excerpt volume, so it's just got excerpts of what he calls the good stuff of like really what
the political stuff.
The political, not too much history, but like all of the kind of the doctrine, do good works and
like a Reader's Digest version.
Reader's Digest, keep the commandments, you'll prosper in the land. And if you don't keep the commandments, you don't prosper. So what better message for U.S. government than in the Essential Book of Mormon?
Who makes that?
It's out of print now, but you can get it every now and then. It's published by the Lighted Candle Society in the District of Columbia.
Wow.
A relatively small time. He did pass away. And so he printed it as part of his lobby group from Washington, D.C.
That's funny.
So, and we had mentioned that the Book of Mormon, sometimes hard to read because of the Old English. And so we had one gentleman who read the Book of Mormon and he took a notebook and he would rewrite the Book of Mormon in his own penmanship of like, what would the Book of Mormon say to me? And like, how can I paraphrase it? And so he actually did the street legal version of Mormon's books by Michael Hicks.
Oh, wow.
He was a BYU music professor, and his humor, God bless him, his humor is amazing in terms of, hey, I'm Nephi. My father did really good. And so I'm writing this. And so it's super humorous. The letters back and forth from Captain Moroni to the evil, Lamanite king is just hilarious in terms of like, I'm going to get you no matter what, and here I come. So it's the street legal version of Mormon's book.
That's funny.
So you and I have to deal with a generation of a younger generation, don't we? So
everybody does.
Everybody does.
It was it Plato or one of those guys was like, oh, children are so disobedient to their parents. And, this is like 600 BC. It's like, this has been something as old as the age of time.
Yeah.
And
so how do you cater to a Gen Z audience? And so what was happening is there is somebody put the Book of Mormon text in the Book of Mormon into ChatGPT. And you can say, okay, ChatGPT is fun because you can actually say then, hey, reword the sentence into pirate speak, and it'll do R-mateys, shiver me timbers, and all this. And then it also says, okay, transfer this text into Gen Z speak. And they published it called The Book of Mormon for Gen Z from ChatGPT. So, First Nephi is so funny. He's like, yo, it's Nephi. I was born to dope parents who taught me all of their knowledge. I've been through some tough times, but the Lord has blessed me with mad knowledge about his mysteries, and I'm making a record of my life.
Mad knowledge.
Here's the deets, So this one's out of print. Here's the deets, yeah. This one's out of print because I'm not sure ChatGPT liked the cover. And so because of it...
because it looks too much like ours?
Yeah, there's a different one called The Book of Mormon for Gen Z.
Oh, it's got a cross on it.
And yeah, I'm not sure how I don't know the printer on it because it's print on demand and it was immediately from Amazon. So anybody can go to Amazon and get the Book of Mormon for this. The Moroni 10, 4, and 5 promise was funny. It says, when you read this, think about how merciful God has been from Adam till now. Let that sink in. When you get these, pray to God in Christ's name. Ask sincerely if it's legit. In the genuine faith and if you're genuine with faith, the Holy Ghost will confirm it. The Holy Ghost reveals truth. So that's more on 10, 4, and 5 in Gen Z speak.
I actually kind of like that.
So I'm actually going to gift you this, and this is for
really?
Yeah, that's for you.
Oh, nice. I appreciate that. That's awesome. I might have to give it to my son. We just finished the Book of Mormon as a family, so that's funny. Yeah, he might like that.
Yeah. So kind of to wrap up, it was kind of interesting going through this experience. And as I continue onward with it, I recognized that the Book of Mormon is independent of a denomination, but it also influences the denomination that hold on to it.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, obviously being a part of the Salt Lake group, I really have a value in the Book of Mormon in my life. And it's interesting seeing like how it's presented through different covers over time, things like that. And I'm really excited that the Book of Mormon will continue to be an influence, whether you like it or not, in a lot of people's lives.
Well, we're not done yet.
Yeah.
We got to talk about the census.
Yeah. I love it because as I've gone through this, I've been asked often, well, how many copies of the 1830 Book of Mormon are still left? I started doing reviews on my YouTube series for the 1830 Book of Mormon. And if you ever experience one, it is electrifying. We call it the spirit, but like if you touch one, you're like, oh, this is awesome. And so I recommend actually anybody, BYU Library has one on display. The Church History Museum has a few on display. They're significant. They're powerful to actually just look at. And so,
but you can't touch them, right? They're usually under glass.
They're usually under glass.
Yeah. You got to be like Royal Scouts to be able to touch them.
Yeah. So I'll tell you how to find one. I'll tell you where you can find them. I've been asked often how many copies of the 1830s still survive because, not all of them are around. Where are they? How can you experience them? And the answer is we don't know how many copies actually survive because a good majority of them are in university libraries in their special collections. A good portion is in church history library, and then a good portion is in private hands. And so no one has actually ever kind of gone through and said where, how many are still surviving. And so for the anniversary for 2030, we decided to do a census project to create an ability to get a proper copy count by the 2030 anniversary of the Book of Mormon.
Oh, wow.
And so we've noticed that when we contacted some libraries, the librarians are great with giving information. And
that's their job.
Yeah, that's their job. And so when we came to them and said, hey, we'd like to get information and we'd like to kind of create a census, they said, oh, yay, it's about time.
Oh.
The case study was in the 1950s, the Gutenberg Bible was kind of known and significant, and they wanted to actually get a copy count of the Gutenberg Bible. So in the 1950, they did a census of what museums had a Gutenberg Bible, came out with 50 of them. And that was a number for a long, long time. 2012, they did another update of it saying, hey, let's update this. Did it change hands? A couple of them did change hands from a private millionaire to a library or something like that. And what was interesting is because of the Soviet bloc in 1950, the Soviets didn't announce their Gutenberg Bibles. And so in 2012, they kind of did, and they updated it to 49 copies instead of 45.
Oh, okay.
So 4 copies in Russia kind of miraculously were discovered since that time. And so we have 49 copies of the Gutenberg Bible. And we know the condition, the details, where they're at. They're on display. I saw one in the British Library in London. Beautiful copy, and so that we can be seen. And so the university librarians knew that the Gutenberg Bible, and there's book censuses, and they've done book censuses before, and so it's about time to do a 1830 book census. And so we've decided to start the website called bookofmormoncensus.com to record the condition and the provenance details of early copies of the Book of Mormon, specifically what we talked about, 1830 or 1842.
Are you looking at more than just 1830 then?
Yeah, so the 1837 volume from Kirtland, significant and special, those are only a few hundred copies. And so as we look at the 1830, we know that some universities, some private owners have an 1837, the Nauvoo copies as well as 1841. The other one that I like, Little Church History, 1869. The early saints have a struggle in terms of having migrants from Scandinavia and other places in Europe come to Utah, and they're trying to learn English. And so they come up with an interesting idea of a script to learn conversational English called the Deseret Alphabet. And so in the 1860s, they organized the Desert Alphabet in Utah.
Oh, wow.
And so the Desert Alphabets continued in newspaper printings and things like that. And they actually decided to print the Book of Mormon in Desert Alphabet.
You got a Deseret Alphabet one?
So this
No way.
This is the Deseret Alphabet Book of Mormon.
Wow. But Gene Carruth can read that.
Yeah. I can't after a little bit, but so they printed a Blue Reader book, and the Blue Reader book was in the 10,000s, but the full volume, 1869 volume, was only 500 copies.
That looks like it's in kind of rough condition.
It is. Half of the 500 copies were water damaged. So this is a water damaged 1869 Book of Mormon.
Wow. That's cool.
So we'd like to find out how many of these are in or have survived. And so because of it, the census has an opportunity to say, hey, we'd really like to know the counts of how many of the 500 are left, how many of the 1830 Book of Mormon, and then the other volumes as well. And
so this is not just 1830. Are you including like third-party editions in this, or is that just too big?
It's a little too big. We are doing what's called honorable mentions. And the honorable mentions are like the one-of-a-kind Book of Mormon that either have an inscription that, for example, like in an honorable mention, we have George Buchanan's gift to Brigham Young for an 1870s Book of Mormon. And so we have Brigham Young's personal Book of Mormon in that as an honorable mention. One of the other ones, BYU. Oh, this is a great story. The engineering department at BYU has a clean room where they can imprint microchips on a disk, if you will. Well, they can microprint so good that they took the text of the Book of Mormon and actually printed the Book of Mormon in a 2 inch by 2 inch square on a disc. And they have it in display at the BYU engineering department.
But you need a microscope to read it.
Yeah, you need a microscope to read it. And so I recorded that one as an honorable mention because it's so cool to see this particular Book of Mormon. But we are focused on the 1830 volumes. And so with the universities have gotten really amazing to give us information on their copies of the Book of Mormon. And so we are in conversation with church archives to make sure that they're comfortable giving us information. And specifically, I know that there's a lot of early Book of Mormon copies in private hands. And a lot of private owners that I've talked to say, I really don't want my information out on the census. And I said, I understand this, and I want to make sure that if you give me information, we keep ownership confidential, and the ownership is anonymous.
Right.
And so a private copy would just say, private owner, 1830 Book of Mormon with either some inscription or something that's unique, and also the characteristics of this particular copy. The case study that we had was in 2012, there was a lady by the name of Helen Schlee in Arizona. And she had a bookstore that she had an 1830 Book of Mormon in it. And a lot of people saw it and loved seeing it. People did a pilgrimage to see her copy. And one weekend it was gone. Somebody had stolen it.
Wow.
And so she contacted the police. She contacted the FBI and said, hey, I've got a very rare book. It's thousands of dollars. It's grand theft. I need some help. And so they put the information out saying that, yeah, we've got a lost Book of Mormon. And kudos to Reed Moon. 6 months later, some guy called and said, hey, I got a Book of Mormon for sale. Do you want it? And he said, yeah, let me see it. And he got pictures and he recognized it as Helen Schlee's volume.
Oh.
And they found it. They got him in trouble or arrested him and found out that he had stolen it, and she actually recovered it.
Wow.
Because she had gotten enough pictures and enough information that she knew that she had it, and she kind of connected with friends. And so we want to kind of create some assurance that says, if you register it, this one is a family legacy, that now there's some assurance to say this is yours. And the census remains anonymous, but it's really interesting that like a family
could help.
Yeah, it can help
stolen.
As well as, a family legacy can say, we
had that.
We have this one. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting.
And so my plea and my request and my humble, hat my hand plea.
All you private collectors, he's going to help you.
Would say that I would love, my purpose is to get information so that I have a proper copy count. And it only works if everyone participates to say
Right.
how many are there available.
And you'll keep their information confidential.
Yeah.
But you'll work with law enforcement as needed.
So in private hands, what's been interesting is
Of course, that might scare some people away if they have a stolen copy.
Some of the interesting ones are in private hands. For example, Hiram Smith gave a copy to Reynolds Cahoon, and it's inscribed, "This is Hiram Smith's copy, Reynolds Cahoon." And it's in private hands. In university hands, Alexander Campbell's copy.
Oh, wow.
Is there. So,
that would be interesting.
A religious contemporary of Joseph Smith looking over.
People might not know who Alexander Campbell is, but
the Campbellites were a affiliate Christian group that had some interesting kind of concepts.
Disciples of Christ, I think.
Sidney Rigdon was a Campbellite.
Yeah.
And so because of it, like if Sidney Rigdon goes away, why are these people leaving our congregations to go to these Mormons? And so Alexander Campbell had a copy of the Book of Mormon, and he marked it up, and that's in university library as well.
So he was kind of the Billy Graham of 18, 20, 30, whatever. And he was like, I don't believe the Book of Mormon. I've read it.
Yeah.
Here's why it's wrong.
Yeah, he did some papers on it, but we've got his copy, I believe in one of the West Virginia copies, or West Virginia universities. Joseph Smith III. This was interesting. It's an inscription of Joseph Smith III, Plano, Illinois. It's like, oh, wait a second. Oh, this is Joseph III.
Right.
And Plano makes sense because he's in Plano, and he gifts it. He regifts it to another family.
Well, that was a church headquarters at one time for RLDS Church.
Yeah. Dr. Phlastus Hurlbut.
Oh, boy.
Was first antagonist to the Mormon movement.
First anti-Mormon book ever.
And so we know where that copy is. It's in a university, I think Pepperdine University.
That's interesting.
So, yeah.
I've been to Pepperdine. I'll have to go again. That's a nice place to go, especially in January.
Yeah. Oliver Smith's 1830 copy is in private hands. So that's on the census there. This is amazing story. John Quincy Adams, his son and his nephew are touring the country in 1844. And in May of 1844, he goes to Joseph Smith in Nauvoo, Illinois.
Right.
This is a month before the martyrdom. And so Joseph is in the height of Nauvoo in 1844.
And a presidential candidate.
And so the Adams family is coming saying, hey, what's this about? And he has a meal with Emma and Joseph in their house. And Emma has multiple copies of the Book of Mormon, and one of the copies that she has was a gift from Brigham Young, an 1841 volume. Well, she liked her 1830, but she had an 1841 that Brigham Young gave to her, and she regifted it to the Adams family. And so this Emma Smith's copy is actually... it actually eventually went to the Adams Presidential Library.
Wow.
And so it's in a national park now. It's in the...
Oh, really?
Yeah. They consider it a national park because it's the Adams Presidential Library.
Oh, wow.
And so a lot of members do some pilgrimage to see that one. But it's Emma Smith's personal copy, and it was given 1 month before the martyrdom. And it's got a Joseph Smith signature in it.
Is it 1830 or 37?
1841.
Oh, 41.
Once again, Brigham Young came back with some really nice volumes, and he gave one to Emma, and Emma decided to give it away. And then inscription is, this was given to me by the Mormon leader in Nauvoo, Illinois, Joseph Smith. Joseph Smith's signature above. And so Emma Smith's copy. Some honorable mentions. We've got Winston Churchill was given a copy of the Book of Mormon. And celebrities are often given copies of the Book of Mormon. And Winston Churchill received one in the 1950s. And it was, to Winston Churchill, I hope this influences, may you always have wisdom in your decisions, or something like that. And so it's a Winston Churchill copy of the Book of Mormon. And what's also interesting, even modern day Book of Mormon is interesting. Buzz Aldrin, the astronaut, Buzz Aldrin.
Did you take a picture of that?
It's in the census.
It's in the census.
Yeah.
Because if we just saw that, can we say who has that?
Brent Ashworth has it in Provo, Utah.
We got a picture. Yeah.
So
I'll have to get that picture from you.
Yeah. So Brent Ashworth has been wonderful. I've talked with quite a few dealers, and I've made sure that says, if we can work together and have a private owner give me a call. I want to make sure that they trust me to get information from them, because this is a pearl of great price in their home. I get it. And I want to make sure that they're comfortable and confident that says, give me pictures, give me details, and I'll make sure that it's recorded in the census properly.
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing about Buzz Aldrin.
Yeah.
Well, tell us about his wife. Why did he sign the Book of Mormon?
In the 1980s, he was married to a lady by the name of last name of Driggs, and she was a member of the church, church. And so there's no record that he was a member, but at least he was married to one and liked the church enough to actually inscribe inside a Book of Mormon, the cover of a Book of Mormon.
And why is Buzz Aldrin famous?
Well, he is the first with Neil Armstrong to go to the moon.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. We've got 5+ more years for this project to go forward. And in the 2 years that we've done this, the universities, private owners, church historians have been really kind of interested in understanding the validity and the significance of this project. And I'm really excited to be part of it, saying I am.
To be part of it? You started it.
Yeah. I'm trying to be
Don't
humble.
undersell your case here.
But in general, this is an amazing experience to have records and individual web pages to say this is so-and-so's Book of Mormon, and this is who's who inside Book of Mormon. What was interesting is quite a few of the missionary copies would say, oh, this is by so-and-so, and so-and-so gave me this copy. I would actually go to Joseph Smith Papers and type in their names, and lo and behold, they were missionaries in that particular area. And I was like, yay, that makes validity to saying, this is right.
Yeah.
And so
where's the Elvis copy?
The Elvis copy is in church archives.
And who gave Elvis his Book of Mormon?
One of his friends. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was Donny Osmond.
That's not the Elvis copy that's been in the news lately. So
okay.
We can see that Elvis got about 4 or 5 actual copies of the Book of Mormon.
Okay.
His bodyguard was a member of the church.
Oh.
And some of the local lore was that his bodyguard went to a seminary with Elvis, an early morning seminary in Los Angeles when he was living, and kind of shoot the breeze with the young kids. And imagine early morning, I got to wake up and, Elvis coming in and saying, hey guys, thanks for being, good job being here. At least you're coming early morning to do something. And this is Elvis. And so, we know his bodyguard was a member. We know that we know that Donny Osmond and the Osmond family was great friends to the
yeah.
And Mother Osmond actually did give him a copy. But
Olive? Was her name Olive?
Olive, yeah. And so we know that she actually gave a copy to Elvis. But the one that's in church archives that was in the news lately around, is this Elvis, is this not Elvis, was supposedly given by a super fan of his.
Has George Throckmorton looked this over?
Jerry, Brent Ashworth has.
Oh.
And Brent Ashworth says that there's some Elvis writing in there. So I don't know.
Yeah, but Mark Hoffman fooled Brent all the time.
I get it, yeah. I believe it, yeah. So the official one was, no, this isn't Elvis's handwriting. The official publication from the church says this isn't Elvis's handwriting. So.
Yeah, we're getting better thanks to Mark Hoffman.
Yeah, we are. And, okay, we've got a Mark Hoffman inscription in the census.
Oh, really?
There's a Joseph Smith signature, and actually it's the Mark Hoffman.
It's a Hoffman signature.
It's a Hoffman signature.
Is it a legit first edition?
This was wonderful about Mark Hoffman, is he would actually take real stuff and embellish it. And so he
make it more valuable.
And so he had 1830.
So he forged Joseph Smith's signature.
Yeah. And so it's a valid 1830. And now the provenance on that one makes it even more exciting because, okay, instead of a Joseph Smith signature, it's all of the story around Mark Hoffman, which is just as exciting. And it's 1830 copies. So
he's kind of a scumbag, though.
Yeah. But that book isn't. That book's awesome.
He ruined it.
So there are 2, and I'm looking for the second one. So if a private owner has the second one.
The second Hoffman forgery?
The second Hoffman forgery.
First edition?
Yeah. With a Joseph Smith signature in it. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So There you go.
Except for, does the owner want to know that it's a Hoffman?
They know it's the Hoffman.
Oh, they already know?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, anything else we're missing?
No, just that I'm excited to be with you today. It's been so fun.
Well, how do people contact you and say, hey, I've got a first edition. I want to be part of the census?
The Census website is called bookofmormoncensus.com.
Okay.
My email address is simple. It's BOM, like Book of Mormon, BOM editions @gmail.com.
Okay.
And then the website, the YouTube series is called Book of Mormon Editions. And we've got over 150 videos, usually about 3 or 4 or 5 minutes long, of specific copies of the Book of Mormon and why they're special or so. So take a look at the videos and contact me if you have further questions. Yeah.
All right. Well, Robert Messick, it's been a pleasure to have you here on Gospel Tangents. It's been way too long, and it's mostly my fault.
Thank
I
you.
apologize for not having you on sooner.
Not a problem. I am so glad to be with you. If I'm in your company, I'm in good company.
All right. Thanks again.
Yep.
I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Robert Messick. He's the host of Book of Mormon Editions. Robert, thanks again for the Book of Mormon that you gave me, as well as for the interesting things on all the different editions of the Book of Mormon. In our next conversation, guess what? I'm going to go visit the secretive Kingston group. I was able to attend a funeral, so if you want, definitely check it out. Thanks for listening, and I hope you to continue to enjoy Gospel Tangents. Consider becoming a Patreon or go to gospeltangents.com/shop, and you can get a cool tie, a hat, or even a nice mug. You can also get a sweatshirt, so check it out at gospeltangents.com/shop.